I really don't have like a method behind what's on the wall. Sometimes I will do things and then I'll turn around and look and like everything will have like a similar color palette. So I just let it naturally get there. So yeah, all the new stuff, when you walk in, I kind of went from more like what more general like people coming to just visit would be into to like more specialized. And it kind of, again, naturally happened that way.
Yeah.
Down here is usually a lot of like newer kind of highlights of stuff. Or something like a pick from the section there, like that's local stuff, the local sections here, that's like a good new like electro records there, you know, stuff like that. A lot of times what's cool now is because there's more of an interest in records, labels can take a risk on not just necessarily reissuing stuff, but issuing stuff that never came out on vinyl or never came out at all. So that's been a nice trend to finally get these like really like well-made vinyl versions of stuff that maybe was CD only, or you know, in the case of those two records on the wall, the Archie Shepp and Pharoah Sanders, it's recordings that were never released, right? So the label in the past has focused on reissues, but when they are able to find unreleased stuff, so it's a new release technically, even though it's an old recording. Stuff like this, Esperanto, a group from Venezuela, extremely hard record to find. So, you know, the label went through the work, talked to the artist. And what's nice about this too is often it's not, you know, bootleg is a bootleg. Somebody rips a record or finds the file somewhere and presses it and kind of just puts it out there so that the person who wants it on record has it. But most labels, they go through the like official route, and that usually means contacting the artist. Maybe them being like, hey, I had an whole album that I never put out, or this happened to me, and then you'll get liner notes and the whole story. So the reissue is not just necessarily putting the record out there, it's also kind of like updating the world on the story.
Totally.
So that's, you know, especially with labels like Favorite Records, one of my, you know, a label I work with a lot, they do incredible work. They're in Paris. And they put out a lot of modern stuff and do reissues, which is like my favorite kind of label. They help both. They help the new fund the old and the old fund the new, you know. Yeah, and then, you know, this is a super rare and incredible like kind of avant-garde jazz record from London, Ontario, from a band in London, Ontario. But reissued by a label. I had to import it from Australia because an Australian label reissued it, you know. And like this example is this label, Black Jazz, is an incredible label. And this guy, Real Gone Music, I guess they got the rights to the whole catalog. So every few months they put out it. And this is very important music for people to enjoy and discover now. It's like, there's a big story. It's powerful. It's great. Yeah, it's great to just have in your mind, you know, like to know those melodies and those rhythms and those songs. Yeah. But then there's tons of new stuff. Matthew Halsall, great modern jazz player, like kind of really like focused in on the spiritual side of it, like a little bit like orchestrated, floaty, a lot of what like Alice Coltrane kind of nurtured and developed in the music, but like in his own voice. It's great stuff.
Cool.
On the other side of the shop was the used and the secondhand stuff. Here I have mostly singles. You know, like this is a record I had growing up. It's the Brothers Johnson. My dad had this in his collection, and it's funny because I'll play it and he won't even remember that he had it. Jimmy Ross, Fall Into a Trance, that too was like a record I would hear a lot. Also, you see Quality Records. Quebec, Montreal was like second city to New York for disco. And a lot of the labels that were in New York had offices here or would press records here. And then there's this company that still exists, Unidisc. And they're in the West Island, their headquarters. They, over the years, bought up the catalog of almost all the major disco labels. They own the rights to most of the stuff, so they do a lot of reissues now. But yeah, this is definitely, growing up, it was more like disco, funk, a bit of rock. Once I like understood house music, I was young, like when I was younger, I wanted to just go that direction more. So I was the guy who tried to put in a little bit more house even into the hip hop nights and to the like mixed reaction to some of my friends.
Yeah.
But then I remember when I was about like 20, 21, a group of my friends, because I grew up doing graffiti and kind of in that part of the culture, and a few of my friends went to Glasgow and did acid and went to a rave. And when they came back, they couldn't listen to anything but techno and house anymore. And they were like, man, like one of the guys was like, man, I understand now. I was like, yeah, you see, I was trying to like at our parties kind of have a little bit of that segment in that moment of just like, we're not listening to lyrics. We're not like necessarily actively listening. It's more that the music is in the room and you can choose your level of participation. That's what's beautiful about that, right? You could just be at the bar with the beat playing in the background, or you could be on the dance floor tripping out. A lot of stuff in here I recognize from my like upbringing as a DJ. And it's really great because I actually get to, you know, some of these records were so dear to me because I could only find one, but now since I'm digging all the time for use stuff, like I actually get to populate this section with a lot of like personal hits. So it's great. It's like, it's fun. It's fun to be able to provide that. Like this was from the early 2000s. It was a really pivotal tune for me. The Pepe Braddock remix of Is and Diz. I think it was maybe my introduction to him was this record. Then he has a big hit called Deep Burnt that everybody knows, and he's produced hip hop. He's a lot of different stuff.
Cool.
So this is more in the 2000s, but my, you know, coming up again in that like Portuguese community, there was a lot of Euro dance and a lot of like kind of trancey, poppy house, which I love still to this day, for sure. Keytronics Ensemble, that's like Italian imports. This is the kind of stuff I would listen to when I was younger. It's more like Italo house and Euro. Bernard Batty, that's Green Velvet's label, Casual Records from Chicago. See, Black Tracks Volume 6, that was Volume 4. So you can get it. You can get 4 and 6 here. I used to kill when I was a kid to find that. Well, here, we'll start with like something like a little disco vibe. We'll start with Dancer, because it's a local classic from Gino Socio. I mean, you probably have heard this song either sampled or played somewhere. Recorded and mixed in Montreal. Yeah, mastered at Sterling Sound in New York.